Good morning, New Covenant. Good morning. Praise the Lord. It is so good to be here. I know oftentimes people say that and it's kind of a rote thing you say, but it really is good to be here at New Covenant Christian Church. And I want you all to know that you all are a tough act to follow. In my time in Columbus, visiting various churches, you know, they ain't like New Covenant, you know? You know, last Sunday I posted on Facebook asking, you know, my friends, you know, what is your church doing for World AIDS Day? And, you know, some folks, my cousin commented in particular and was like, churches do that? And I was like, well, yeah, mine does. But I am so grateful for the work of New Covenant Christian Church, the ministry that goes beyond the pulpit, beyond the walls of the church. And we do great work even within the church, but taking that out into the community and really impacting and enriching people's lives. You know, I'm just grateful for that model of ministry that I've learned here. Amen. Amen. And I thank you all for all of you who have called and texted and emailed and checked in on myself and my husband as we've been in Columbus. The tribes are great. I've got the best tribe leader. Elder Kaki is wonderful. She checks in with me regularly to ensure that things are going well. I'm constantly praying for us. And I know that all of you have been doing the same. So I'm so grateful and glad for each and every one of you. And my husband, you know, Pastor always, she's already stole the thunder, so he graduated. You know, secrets out, but congratulations. Can we give him a hand? I appreciate that. Soon to be doctor, medical doctor.
All right. Amen. Amen.
I ain't no gold digger, but amen. Let me preach. Mark chapter 5, verse 25 can be found on page 816 of your Pew Bible. Mark chapter 5. And I know it's another thing people say, but I won't be here long. Y'all have heard me preach before. I'm not long-winded. And I'm ready to go eat anyway. Amen. The more y'all say amen, the quicker I'll sit down.
Amen, amen.
Wait, not that soon. Mark 5, verse 25. Now there was a woman who had been suffering from hemorrhages for 12 years. She had endured much under many physicians and had spent all that she had, and she was no better, but rather grew worse. She had heard about Jesus, and she came up behind him in the crowd and touched his cloak. And some translations says that she touched the border of his garment. For she said that if I could but touch his clothes, I will be made well. Immediately her hemorrhage stopped, and she felt in her body that she was healed of her disease. And immediately aware that power had gone forth from him, Jesus turned around in the crowd and said, "Who touched my clothes?" The disciples said to him, "You see the crowd pressing on you. How can you say, 'Who touched me?'" And he looked around to see. He wanted to find out who had done it. But the woman, knowing what had happened to her, came in fear and trembling, fell down before him and told him the whole truth. And he said to her, "Daughter, your faith has made you well. Go in peace and be healed of your disease." This morning, I'll spend a few minutes talking from the subject, Jesus is coming to town. Jesus is coming to town. How many small children do we have? Okay, I'm not going to get in trouble. When I was a child, I remember the days leading up to Christmas being filled with so much joy and anxiety. And I distinctly remember one year in particular that was particularly anxiety-inducing for me, because that was the year I was determined that I was going to catch Santa Claus in the act of placing those gifts underneath the tree. I was going to catch them red-handed. I had a whole elaborate scheme of how I was going to do it. See, if I had to stay up all night, I was going to do that. I was going to pretend to be asleep on the couch, keep that one eye open, to catch this man breaking into our house to put gifts under the tree.
All right now.
Yes. I had personally baked a batch of delicious cookies.
Yeah.
That would surely lure this overweight man through the kitchen, into the living room, past the couch where I would be sleeping. And if I did happen to fall asleep, the missing cookies would prove that he had been there and visited our home. But you see, I had a few concerns. Whenever I would hear about Santa coming to town, I had heard that he had entered people's homes through the chimney. There's a problem. We had no chimney. So how was he going to get in?
Right. Yeah.
I suppose he could have used the door, right?
Yeah. See? Yeah.
But we had enough sense in the hood to keep our doors locked and bolted.
Right. That's right. Yeah.
I imagined he was too large to climb through a window without making a ruckus.
Yeah.
But nevertheless, I was assured that somehow, some way, he would breach the boundary of our house in order to deliver the gifts that he had in store for us. So I settled into my little spot on the couch in tiptoe anticipation of his arrival. In this season of Advent, we anticipate the coming of Jesus the Christ, Son of God and Savior of the world, God's gift to humanity. But I can't help but wonder, how have we prepared for his arrival? Moreover, will Jesus be able to breach the various boundaries and borders we have constructed? What if I told you Jesus was coming to town? Would he be able to breach and cross national borders? The scriptures record that in order to escape persecution of King Herod, Jesus' family was forced to leave Bethlehem and become refugees. Would we allow Mary and Joseph and their small child to enter the United States? Or would we meet them at the border with chemical weapons?
Yeah.
Would we grant Jesus and his family asylum? Or would we rip the little baby Jesus from his mother's arms and place him and his parents in separate detention facilities? What if I told you Jesus was coming to town? Would he be able to cross the borders of our state and local communities? Would we welcome Jesus and his family to our city, or would we simply dismiss them as foreigners trying to take our jobs and use up all of our government assistance resources? Would we welcome Jesus' family with open arms, or would we turn up our noses at them because more of those people are coming and moving into our neighborhood? What if I told you Jesus was coming to town? Would he be welcome in the church?
Good question.
Would we be willing, like the church in the Netherlands, to do everything possible to protect Jesus' family from being detained and deported? Or would we simply acquiesce to the demands of ICE and send our shallow thoughts and prayers?
Wow.
Would Jesus be able to cross the borders of our unyielding ideologies and personal preferences? What if he didn't subscribe to binary gender norms and didn't look or dress the way that we would expect? Would we do like this so-called pastor in Chicago and kick him out of the church? Prohibit him from coming back unless he dressed how we wanted him to dress? Would we treat Jesus like a young preacher was treated at the Church of God in Christ convention earlier this year and openly rebuke him for having the wrong kinds of friends, for having gay friends? I just wonder, would Jesus be welcome in our churches even though he's not Christian?
Come on now, work with it. God, do the deed.
What if I told you Jesus was coming to town? How would we receive him? borders and boundaries that we erect are harmful. We construct borders to keep people out, and we fool ourselves into thinking that we're protecting ourselves. But what we don't realize is that the people that we demean and the people we want to keep away are at times the very people that will bless us.
Yeah.
You see, Herod saw Jesus as a threat to be extinguished, but little did he know that no human effort could thwart the plans of God, that Jesus, through life and legacy, would be a blessing to so many. So the next time you want to talk about who doesn't belong and who doesn't belong here and who doesn't belong there, remember that the people we desire to disbar are often the gifts that we absolutely need. So rather than building walls, we should be building a bigger table so that we can extend a warmer welcome to God's children.
Amen.
What if I told you Jesus was coming to town? The borders we construct do more harm than good. And their purpose is usually to further ostracize the marginalized and oppressed people. If we look at our text, we find this woman with a blood flow issue. And she had overcome so many borders and boundaries that prevented her from living a full life. The scriptures record that she had this issue for 12 years. This condition was undoubtedly a border for her. It placed restrictions on how she could live, where she could go, how she could interact with other people, because she ran the risk of making other people unclean.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. To some, her ailment made her unnatural, undesirable, and unworthy. It made her an outsider. She overcame so many borders. The text says that she suffered a great deal under the care of many doctors. Now, I found this part of the passage to be quite interesting. She suffered a great deal under the care of doctors.
Yep.
She was suffering at the doctor.
Yeah.
Suffering at the doctor. And not only that, she didn't get better when she went to the doctor.
Right.
She got worse when she went to the doctor.
Yeah.
Isn't it funny how sometimes the people who are supposed to be helpers and healers end up hurting you even more?
Yeah.
I believe I preached a message here about church hurt. You know, the church is supposed to be a place for the suffering to find relief, but too many of our churches are hack hospitals with phony physicians posing as prophets and pastors. It's no wonder folks leave the church and run to other methods of self-medication and other things to deal with their issues rather than coming here.
Lord have mercy.
Not New Covenant, though. Not New Covenant. Them other places. What if I told you Jesus was coming to town? My God. The text says that she kept going to all these doctors and ended up spending everything she had. So in addition to her being sick, going to the doctor just to get worse, now she's poor.
Yep.
Poverty, another border separating her and so many others from having an abundant life. A lot of the modern discourse in this country seeks to place blame on those in poverty. We like to believe they're poor because it's their fault why they're poor. They're in their predicament because of their poor decisions. Because if we can place the blame on the poor, then that somehow absolves us of any responsibility to help them. Y'all know how we do.
That's it.
See a person on the side of the road, I'm not giving them nothing, because all they finna do is go out there and buy drugs. They finna buy alcohol. I'm not giving them nothing. They need to get up and get a job like me.
That's it.
I can't help but wonder who offered this woman some help. This woman who, of no fault of her own, fell on hard times as a result of some physical condition. You know, I wonder if the doctors simply gave up because they couldn't figure out what was wrong with her, or did they give up because she ran out of money to keep paying?
Them number 2.
Did anyone in the community offer to help her financially, physically, emotionally? Did anybody just offer to spend some time with her?
My God, my God.
This woman who had endured so much heard that Jesus was coming to town and that he had a gift just for her. You see, she didn't have anything expensive to offer him in return, but she had the priceless power of faith.
Yes.
She anticipated that if she could just make it to the border of his clothing, that her suffering would cease. So she pressed through the crowd, thinking, if I could just make it to the border, everything will be all right. If I could just make it to the border, everything would be all right. I know there are so many around the world that are still saying, if I could just make it to the border, then everything will be all right. So she pushed her way, she pressed, she walked until she reached the border of his. She pressed her way until Jesus was right in front of her, and she reached out and she touched the border of his garment. She had made it. She reached the border and something happened.
Yeah.
She got caught.
That's it. That's it.
She got caught. Jesus turned around. Who touched me? He asked, who touched me? In other words, who crossed my border?
Yeah.
The woman hid in fear, because technically there were laws in place that prohibit her from doing what she did. But she did what she had to do to escape her suffering and to make a better life for herself.
Yeah.
She was afraid because she, according to society, shouldn't have done what she had done. But when she realized that she couldn't hide anymore, she turned herself in. She confessed. She said, I did it. But what happens next is utterly amazing. You see, Jesus didn't meet her with tear gas. No, he didn't demand that immigration officers take her into custody. No, my siblings, when she reached the border of his garment, the border goes away completely. And there is a free spiritual exchange between the woman and Jesus. There is a free transmission of resources. And without thinking about it, Jesus heals the woman from her suffering. After the borders were dissolved, she was able to live a more abundant life. Y'all aren't hearing me. After the borders were dissolved, she was able to lead a more abundant life. I'm almost through. So in this season of Advent, my message for you is that you better watch out. You better not cry. You better not pout. I'm telling you why. That Jesus Christ is coming to town. And he's not coming empty-handed. Like the woman in our text, some of you have suffered some things. And it seems as though the more you try to overcome it, it gets worse and worse and worse. You may have been struggling for quite some time now, and you don't know what else to do. There were some people who were supposed to help you, but they only ended up hurting you even more. But the good news this morning is that Jesus is coming to town, and he's come to give you life and to give you life more abundantly. See, you don't have to bring him anything expensive. You don't have to bring him some tangible resources. You don't have to go into debt trying to prove that you love him. No, all he wants is your faith in him, because faith the size of a mustard seed is more priceless. It's worth more than than any possession that you can give to Christ. My friends, Jesus is coming to town, and I urge you to exercise your faith and come to him. See, if you could just press your way to him, if you could just push past the adversity, if you could just push through the hurt, if you could just press into his presence and find that the borders are gone, the limits have been removed. All you have to do is reach out and receive what God has for you. You can be healed on today. The borders are gone. You can be healed healed from your physical suffering. You can be healed of mental anguish. You can be healed of emotional unrest. You don't have to self-medicate. You don't have to try to escape, because the good doctor, the good doctor, the great physician is here to heal you, and he desires for you to have an abundant life. You can be healed from broken relationships. You can be healed from past trauma. You can be healed from familial hurt. You can be healed from church hurt on today. Whatever it is that you need from God, know that the borders have been erased. The borders have been dissolved, and all you have to do is come. The welcome is extended. The open is wide. And all you have to do is reach out and grab. Reach out and receive what God has for you on today. Jesus is coming to town. And on this morning, Jesus is knocking at the border of your heart, asking you, will you welcome him in? Will you receive Jesus with a warm welcome, or will you turn him away? Jesus desires to be in relationship with you. He desires to extend to you the greatest gifts that he can offer. Life, more abundant life, a healed life, a recovered life. You can have that today. All you have to do is just tear down the border, remove the border around your heart. Let him come in on this day. Let him come in on this day. Won't you come? The welcome is extended. You may come. Allow Jesus to be Lord of your life. If you don't have a relationship with him, you can open up the border of your heart. Maybe you were in prior relationship with him. You may have fallen by the wayside. Put up a border around your heart. You can come back to him today. God doesn't hold grudges. And maybe you need prayer on today. You've endured so much. So many obstacles. So many boundaries. So many borders. And you're tired on today. You're suffering. You can come right now. Allow Jesus to enter your heart. Allow him to give you the gift of healing, the gift of a sound mind, the gift of comfort, and the gift of joy. Won't you come?